Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, has made himself available to us after the gavel. Senator, where is your optimism or pessimism meter as you look across the aisle? Do you see as many yes votes, knowing it's a paltry few, as many yes votes as you saw before proceedings got gavelled underway?
Well, importantly, this was the first day in which we got to talk about John Bolton. So the news broke yesterday, but today was the first day that the House managers could really put the pressure on House Senate Republicans to do what is right, to follow their duty as constitutional officers and seek the truth. And so I think that there were a lot of Republicans squirming in that chamber today as they saw what was going to be coming for them if they had to go back to their constituents and explain why they refused to hear testimony from the most key individual available to testify as to the president's role in this corruption. And so I don't think we know what the vote's going to be like on witnesses until Friday. I think the pieces are moving every single day and every single hour of every single day. But today was a day that the pressure really got put on Senate Republicans in a big way.
You say they're squirming, and yet I've got the former party chair next to me who just said of McConnell's ability to whip his membership, the fix is in. So I have to ask you a hypothetical. If the witness vote goes down, if this all goes down and is cleared up and out of the Senate, perhaps in time for Sunday's football game, what are the consequences to you for the Senate, for the country, and for things like balance of power?
Well, I think there's going to be hell to pay, both for those that vote for this cover-up, but for our country as well, by essentially whitewashing the truth, by turning the Senate trial into just one big partisan cover-up. I don't know that we'll ever be able to recover this obligation that the Senate has. But I also just don't know the Republicans are going to be able to explain this. I mean, I think the president wants this done by the State of the Union so he can engage in some big celebration. But that celebration is not going to happen because 80% of the American public, including lots of Donald Trump supporters, don't believe this is a fair trial, don't believe it's a real acquittal unless there are witnesses. And the more we learn about John Bolton's testimony, and by the way, we're going to learn a lot more about it. There are going to be more leaks ahead of the release of the book. And then when the book comes out, we're going to know everything. It's going to sour this process even more. It's going to cause even more Americans, even those that might be willing to vote for Donald Trump, to feel very angry about the way that their Constitution was abused. So I think we don't know everything about how this is going to play out, but I guarantee you it's going to be very bad politically, but very bad from a policy perspective for the country as well.
Final question for our audience, Senator. Remind those watching your personal history with Ukraine, why this is a meaningful debate to you.
So I've been working on U.S.-Ukraine policy for the better part of the decade. I was there with John McCain during the Revolution of Dignity when the Soviet-backed leader, when the Russian-backed leader was kicked out of that country. And I was there just last fall when I told President Zelensky that he would damage the U.S.-Ukraine relationship if he got involved in an American election. And he told me in that meeting that he had no intention to get involved, that he knew the damage that would be done to Ukraine if they got somehow integrated into the president's reelection effort. And so this whole idea that the Republicans are trying to spread on the floor of the Senate that Zelensky felt no pressure. Well, I was there. I heard him tell me and Senator Johnson how important it was for him to resist this pressure. He was feeling it. He knew the damage that would be done to his country. And now that story is out for all to hear.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.